Dipa Ma, Chapter 7. How are you living your life? Quote, "The whole path of mindfulness is this. Whatever you are doing, be aware of it." End quote. The partner of a spiritual teacher once said, "I know he's learning something because he's less difficult to live with." Insights that are genuine change our whole way of being. They make us gentler with each other and with the planet. Perhaps your practice has rewarded you with deep insights. But wonderful as they are, such experiences are fleeting. Enlightened or not, the question remains, how are you living your life? It's a simple test, but an important one. How do you wash the dishes? How do you react when someone cuts you off on the freeway? Dipa Ma was a living example of how to live in this world, of how practice and the mundane activities of our day-to-day existence can be made one. She insisted that the practice be done all the time, and that we do the things we do throughout the day without making them into problems. Dipa Ma wanted to know, how awake are you in your life? Are you just thinking about being mindful, or are you really doing it? Dipa Ma said that even while she was talking, she was meditating. Talking, eating, working, thinking about her daughter, playing with her grandson, none of those activities hampered her practice because she did them all with mindfulness. Quote, "When I'm moving, shopping, everything, I'm always doing it with mindfulness. I know these are things I have to do, but they aren't problems. On the other hand, I don't spend time gossiping or visiting or doing anything which I don't consider necessary in my life." End quote. How Do You Tie Your Shoes? By Jack Kornfield. Quote, "She encouraged me to live what I was teaching. The quality of her presence was like that in the Hasidic tales, where somebody asked, 'Why did you go to see this rabbi? Did you go to hear him give a great lecture on the Torah, or see how he worked with his students?' And the person said, 'No, I went to see how he tied his shoes.' Dipa Ma didn't want people to come and live in India forever, or be monks, or join an ashram. She said, live your life, do the dishes, do the laundry, take your kids to kindergarten, raise your children or your grandchildren, take care of the community in which you live. Make all of that your path, and follow your path with heart." End quote. Enlightened Ironing by Michelle Levy. Quote, "She believed you could become enlightened ironing your clothes. She felt that every activity should be given that much mindfulness. And the care should be there too, care for whoever you are ironing the clothes for." End quote. Laundry with Saint by Jack Kornfield. Quote, "My favorite scene in all the 8mm home movie footage I shot of Dipa Ma is of her hanging out the laundry. Remember that Zen saying, after the ecstasy, the laundry? Well, there is this long shot, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, of Dipa Ma smiling and enjoying hanging out the laundry. It's wonderful to see her in the sunshine, in the yard. I would like to take a frame of this and call it Laundry with a Saint." End quote. The Sacred Within the Mundane by Andrew Getz. Quote, "When I knocked on the door, Ma's daughter Dipa answered. I was quite excited about meeting Dipa Ma, and had a bundle of questions I wanted to ask her about meditation. After a few minutes, an elderly woman, Dipa Ma, appeared. She seemed totally uninterested in my presence. She didn't look at me. She didn't acknowledge me. She was so incredibly silent and quiet, so grounded and present, that I knew I would have to wait until she was ready to relate to me. It wasn't aloofness exactly. Rather, it was a sense of real stillness. When she came into the room, she picked up a tiny little plastic toy duck that must have belonged to her grandchild, and took it over to a plastic basin on the windowsill. In the soft afternoon light coming through the window, she began bathing the duck. It was like baptizing this little plastic toy. What impressed me most was that she did it so wholeheartedly. Here were these objects that were so mundane, in some sense the opposite of spiritual, just a dirty old plastic toy. Yet she did the whole process so wholeheartedly. It immediately centered me just watching her." End quote. Impeccable Morality by Michael Liebenson Grady. Quote, "When fall began to turn into winter at IMS, my role was to round up the appropriate winter clothes for Dipa Ma's family. Someone made Dipama a shawl, and others began contributing clothing. One of the items I gave her was a very comfortable pair of warm socks, which she wore regularly around the house. I was pleased that my small gift was proving so useful to her, but I made the careless mistake, in all the busyness of those days, of having brought them to her without formally offering them as a gift. After 7 weeks of sharing day-to-day life, the time came for me to take Dipama and her family to the airport and to say goodbye. When I came back to the house, I was filled with sadness. A period of great intensity was over. The house felt so empty. When I went into her bedroom, I found a few items neatly placed on the foot of her bed. One of them was the pair of socks. My heart sank. I couldn't understand why she had consciously left them behind. After some reflection, I realized the socks were given in an unclear way, that she would not assume that they were hers to keep. As small as this incident seems, it held a powerful teaching in what impeccable sila, morality, looks like. A lesson which was painful at the time, but one that I would remember. End quote. Relentlessly Present by Stephen Schwartz. Quote, I asked Dipama, would you like to move into the other room to sit? There's a group coming over this evening. I'm sitting now, why go to the other room to sit? Well, we're going to do a little sitting in here. But we are sitting. But other people want to come, and they'll be sitting in the other room. Finally, I got her to go into the other room and sit. She could just be there, relentlessly. Her eyes could be open, her eyes could be closed. It really didn't make any difference. This was the most remarkable aspect of her presence in our house, the sense of, why move? What is there really to do? At these sittings, sometimes 50 people might arrive to receive her blessings, but no matter how many came, she would take each person one by one and be completely present. In watching the singularity of her focus and connectedness, I could see she was relating to each person as God. End quote. Just Standing, Just Sitting by Michael Liebenson Grady. Quote, I never ever saw Dipama have a restless or distracted moment, and I used to watch her all the time. When she would stand, it was like a rock dropping. She would just stand. And when she sat, period. There was never anything else going on. She didn't look around or ever lose her focus. End quote. Beeline to the Buddha by Ajahn Thanasanti. Quote, in Calcutta, a student of Dipama's and Munindra's, who had become financially successful, held a big celebration to bless a new house. I walked up the stairs with Dipama and helped her with her shoes. People were talking and eating, the stereo was on, and the buoyancy in the atmosphere was like a champagne party. The room was charged with an excited, loud energy. Dipama walked in the door and in her steady, even-paced way, immediately made a beeline to the Buddha, across the room. When she was in front of the image, she got down on the floor and began bowing, right in the middle of everyone eating hors d'oeuvres and celebrating. I realized that for Dipama, no matter what was happening, she had only one aim, and that was the truth. End of quote. You Just Do It by Jack Kornfield. Quote, speaking to me as a teacher, she would ask, what are your sittings like? Do you practice? Do you have any thoughts? What do you mean, any thoughts? Millions of thoughts, I would think. Stop them. What do you mean, stop them? I can with great yogic effort, but it takes me a long time to build up the samadhi. No, she would simply say, you just sit down and you just do it. End quote. It's Okay by Patricia Ganud Feldman. Quote, when I was on my way from Bangkok to Delhi, my plane had a technical problem and needed to land in Calcutta. I had a 24-hour layover, and I thought, this would be a nice way to meet Dipama. I found out where she lived and went to her apartment. When I arrived, I was told she was on a silent retreat and I wouldn't be able to talk to her. I was told to only go in her room, do my bows, and leave. When I went into her room, it happened that she was eating and had her back to me. In the room there was this incredible energy of calm and softness, and it brought a wave of emotion and tears for me. She could not see me because I was standing behind her, But she must have felt me, because she turned around and said to me very softly, "It's okay, it's okay." That is all she said, but it was so peaceful and calming. She met my heart when it needed it in a very beautiful and spontaneous way. That moment has stayed with me. In times of great difficulty, I remember her simply saying, "It's okay." She showed me that everything is okay and that it's all part of our path. End quote, and end of section.